This is the third webinar in the series, and it's all about having a plan. Hopefully, you've watched the other two. If not, I'm going to share a slide so that you can um, find the complete series so that you can watch them all. My name is Howard Beader. I'm Vice President of Product Marketing here at Catchpoint, and I'm very happy to have you all with us. Additionally, I'm really excited to have Akshita Agarwal with us today. Akshita, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Akshita Agarwal. I am a senior solutions engineer at Catchpoint, so all things technical comes to me. Excited to have you all today.
Awesome. We're excited to have you. Akshita is the expert here. So I'm going to share some details and then we're going to turn it over to the expert to dig into the details. So, for those that maybe have missed the prior two, we've got a great QR code here that you can just scan and find the complete series. So, I love this quote: a goal without a plan is just a wish. And when you start thinking about the internet and performance monitoring and internet performance monitoring, um, you can't just wish that it works. You really need to be monitoring and you've got to have a plan. And that's what this session is all about today. For those of you that are new to Catchpoint or new to internet performance monitoring or IPM, what we do is we deliver an IPM solution set. And the IPM solution set is just like APM, but instead of being focused on your app stack, we're really focused on the internet stack to give you full visibility so that you can catch any issues before it impacts your business. Now, we do that with one native cloud platform or native SaaS platform, and we have specific solutions on our platform that really cut across your complete enterprise. Whether you're focused on your customer experience or your workforce, or your website, or your network, or even your applications and APIs, we have one IPM platform to really help you ensure resilience across your enterprise. And when we're thinking about resilience, the way we think of resilience here at Catchpoint is really these four areas. It's about availability, it's about reliability, reachability, and of course, performance. So it's not just is the website live or the app live and working, it's about where I am. Can I reach it? Is it performing as I would expect it to perform? And is it performing reliably? And we're going to get into ensuring and building that plan to ensure you get this resilience. Now, every organization is really about growth, and resilience is driving that growth. We've got this great quote here from Forrester Research about enabling growth, creating growth, and amplifying growth. And to scale, you really need resilience because we're not scaling at the way things used to happen prior to the internet. We're scaling at internet speed. Creating growth is about opening new markets, and you can't open new markets these days without the internet, without resilient internet. And then this amplification is about automation and AI to consistently optimize everything. And again, you need a resilient internet to be able to do that. So let's talk about how we get there. Over to you, Akshita.
Awesome. So, as Howard mentioned, growth is something that all organizations look for. But if we ever have to achieve this target. How exactly go about it, right? But before we even get there, let's take a step back and see what can prevent a continuous growth or a continuous improvement of the websites or applications on the internet that you or I would be responsible for. So we had a outage that we observed late in 2021 where AWS had about three outages in December. And again, emphasis on the fact that it happened in December, which is the peak holiday season. I'm sure most of you remember it. However, it was one tool that went down or one company that had issues. Do you remember the associated domino effect that it had on the internet? Sure, AWS had issues where we saw a drop in availability, but how did it impact everything else? There were a bunch of companies that reported issues due to their impact or their dependency on a tool like AWS. So a bunch of them have been, you can see them right now. You have Disney, you have PlayStation, you have Netflix, you have Snapchat, you have Zoom. You also have tools like Thousand Eyes, New Relic. All of them reported intermittent issues wherein, hey, they were unable to do what they are supposed to do, or they had issues where their systems were slow. Now, think of a scenario, right, Howard? Let's say that you're a company that relies on, let's say, New Relic, and you use Slack for detecting or talking to your teammates when an outage happens. Or Slack is a tool where you get information about, hey, an outage has happened and you use New Relic or a different monitoring tool that shows that, hey, system X is down. Now, if both New Relic and Slack are down, what would you do? How would you even resolve it? Right?
Right. It's an issue. It's an issue where it's like the fox guarding the henhouse, right? If you're in that
Exactly.
same cloud, you're just going to be down.
Exactly. So, one such example that we saw in 2021 gave us a very good understanding that if you have a system that resides in a specific or a provider that you're using, some infrastructure. And if your monitoring tool also resides in the same infrastructure, you're essentially using a tool in an infrastructure that you're supposed to monitor. So if both you and the infrastructure you rely on go down, there are chances where you will have blind spots. You will not be having visibility into the outages. You will not be able to get insights into why your system is down. Or your system may get slow, so you would have customers complaining that, hey, your website is slow, it's not available. I'm not able to log in, or I'm not able to check out from your e-commerce website. Or they may report saying that, hey, I'm trying to make a payment, but the payment system is so slow. It's frustrating. I'll go to somebody else. And that somebody else may or may not rely on AWS. So their experience may improve, right? With the other client or your competitor. If that happens, you will see a loss in revenue, which is not good for your company's reputation and it will not help you with growth. What we started our conversation with. Your customers will be frustrated, and yes, your brand reputation will be impacted, something none of us want. So, we saw an example. Sure, we've seen all these things. Now, what can we do next? Or what are the things we need to look out for? Right? That's what we'll talk about for the next few minutes. This is where IPM comes in, where it stitches with your APM solution. Now, there are four different pillars in terms of monitoring and where you would stand depending on how your monitoring structure is designed. If you are solely focused on APM only, where you're monitoring only your applications internally or the infrastructure that they rely on, you would either be somebody who's monitoring something passively or reactively, meaning you would not see deterministic outcomes because you don't have any targets. You're just seeing if your infrastructure is up or down. If you're in a reactive approach, let's say where you do some kind of infrastructure plus APM monitoring, maybe you will be able to get insights into backend microservices. This could help you improve in results, but these are not value driven or they will not help you with growth. That's where IPM comes in. It complements your APM solutions, wherein with IPM, you're not just looking at the internal infrastructure on whether, hey, are my data centers up? Or hey, are my cloud instances up? No. What you're doing is you're going one step further to see how the external factors are. When I say external factors, what does that mean? How the internet is. Is my DNS working fine? If I have a third party vendor, like a payment module or some third party marketing tracker, are they working? Are they giving me the metrics that I need to ensure my company grows in the future? So that's where your proactive or value led monitoring comes into play, where you're not just telling, hey, this system is up or that system is down. You're also understanding for how long that system was down, what part of the infrastructure or the workflow for the end user was down. How long did it last for? If it lasted for 2 minutes, does that mean I lost $2 million today just because of that 2 minute outage? So things like that are what you can equate from a marketing or a business standpoint onto your company's goals and future planning. Seems interesting, right, Howard?
Very.
Alrighty. So let's look at some examples. So Howard mentioned the four resiliency pillars. There was reachability, there was availability, there was performance, and there was reliability. What do these words mean? I mean, sure, we can say that, hey, reachable means the application has to be reachable at all times, but what exactly does that mean? So take a simple example. When I make a request to my website, the first thing that happens is get the IP address of that domain. Sounds simple enough, right? A lot of times this becomes an unsung hero where till it works fine, it's all good. But when it doesn't, everybody wakes up and we all say it's never DNS, and it happens to be DNS. If it does, this is what your customers will see. Your website is not even reachable. They can't even access your applications. So your APM may not show that because the internal systems are fine, but the customers don't see that. That's because DNS was down. So with an IPM solution, what you would see is that blip in drop of the availability of a website, which is indicated by the red diamonds that you see on your screen. We can also show you why it failed or what was the reason for it. An example for which you see below, where it says that it was because of a DNS issue where a specific domain I was accessing had an issue with the resolution. Again, unsung hero, it becomes a problem when it actually goes down and something we do not want. Another example for reachability. So let's say that, okay, fine, I get the IP address. What next? I have to establish a connection to that endpoint, right? But if that is not working, for example, customers that your customers who access your applications over the internet, they use a bunch of internet service providers out there. Something neither you or us have under our control, right? Let's say an internet service provider, the big players out there like the Verizons or the Comcasts, something happens on their infrastructure. What next? If we start seeing connection errors, because of something that happened on an ISP or an internet service provider. This is what your customers will see. They will see a connection timeout error, right? Again, internal structure, infrastructure, everything is great. This is an external vantage point or an external component which is broken, which will again impact your customer's experience. Now, when that happens, again, you will see a drop or a blip in your availability, again indicated by the red diamonds. If that happens or why it happened, we can go one step further to figure that out. In this example, the users were unable to establish a connection for up to 30 seconds. And when we tried to do a little more digging on the network layer, we found out that the endpoint was not even reachable because you were unable to establish a connection to it. Again, all external factors that you or I may not have direct control over, but it is something that we need to have visibility into. So reachability is covered. All right. What about availability? Availability gives us the answer to the question on whether the website or the application is up or down. So we must have seen these visuals more often than I can count. You're trying to access an application, especially when it's a busy holiday season, or you're trying to buy tickets when something goes live. right? You would have seen these, a 503 where the service is unavailable. You may even see a 400 bad request. You may see 404 where a specific website doesn't exist. Or let's say you're trying to make a payment after you finish your purchase. That specified payment provider has gone down. Maybe it has too much traffic on it. Maybe they have some misconfiguration. We may never know. Now, when this happens, what would your customers think? That, hey, this website isn't that great. Let me try someplace else, right? That's where IPM comes in. The intent of IPM is to try to catch these issues as quickly as possible. Even more so, the intent is to try to get them, or we try to get visibility into them even before your customers see it. That way, even before they wake up and log in to see, oh, there's a 503, you would have already woken up, fixed it, and you would, go by your business as you were before. So one example is, hey, if I'm seeing a bunch of errors, sure, I can get a count that, oh, if I have 8,000 requests, in that 10% of my requests were having an error. That's all right, but what next? How is that impacting the number of requests coming on my page? Is it resulting in a drop in revenue, a drop in conversion, which in turn will mean that you're not growing at that on that particular day, you will incur losses. Can we keep track of that? Yes, we can with a full-fledged IPM solution. All right. Some more visuals that you may see them being familiar. A quick, a little bit of math here just for some fun. So there have been studies that show that when a website, in terms of how quickly they load, if they are 100 milliseconds faster, you may see up to 1% increase in your revenue. Again, if it's a super big e-commerce company or even mid-tier e-commerce companies, 1% revenue can mean a lot of money, right? And this is just with 100 millisecond improvement. On the flip side, you may have spent a lot of effort in improving your website by 100 milliseconds to generate 1% additional revenue. But let's take it on the flip side, where your website becomes 2 seconds slower. What would that mean? Does that mean I lose 1% revenue, or what would that entail? Studies show that you would have 100% bounce, more than 100% bounce rate, meaning you would lose almost all of your customers if your website becomes 2 seconds slower. Also, a customer who would have had a negative experience like this, where the website became slow or something was unavailable, they were unable to finish the checkout process, it won't stop there. They will go tell their friends or family that, hey, do not go into website X. I had a terrible experience. Instead, I went to Y and Y was much better. Howard, wouldn't you have? This is so relatable, right? We do this
I
every
think,
day.
yeah, I think we've all faced this issue, right? Where we try and buy something on a website and it simply just doesn't work. I mean, I know my wife has tried over and over to get a site to be able to take an order, and it just doesn't work sometimes, and we end up going elsewhere. So this is something that impacts every single business.
Yeah, absolutely. And one such example is what you can see just below those numbers that I've put up. There was an example where a big e-commerce client of ours it took about 14 seconds for somebody to complete a checkout process. Just the checkout. I'm not talking about somebody who logs in, adds something to the cart, and then goes to checkout. This is solely the checkout page where you enter your card details and you eventually buy whatever you're looking to buy. Imagine taking 14 seconds to buy a product. That would be extremely frustrating. Now, one of the efforts that was made as part of the IPM solution was to understand the culprits causing this delay of 14.7 seconds. It so happened that there were a couple of third-party tags that were injected in the page as part of a marketing campaign that happened 3 years ago. They were no longer needed. They had to be cleaned up, but for some reason it fell through the cracks and it was never done. When these endpoints were recognized and cleaned up, it resulted in a 37% decrease for the time taken for a user to complete the checkout process. It took from 14 seconds, it came down to about 9 seconds. When this happened, given the numbers we had from the amount of revenue they generate a year, Given that we save 5.5 seconds for them, it could potentially help in increasing the revenue by $2 million. Super significant. And just by bringing down a website or making it quicker by 5.5 seconds.
Yeah,
Imagine if it comes down even more.
that's amazing. Speed matters.
It does. Definitely does. All right. So, given all these examples that I threw your way, one thing that is clear is that when it comes to monitoring or when it comes to ensuring that our systems are efficient, reliable, and available at all times, there is never a finish line. It is something that we would constantly have to keep doing, and it never stops. There's a very nice quote that I saw that I thought I'd share with you guys, and it is what it is when it comes to monitoring. All right, so we've talked about the different scenarios where monitoring plans are important, right? Before we get into the 6 steps of success, one thing that I will talk about is sure, I gave you an example of IPM and how it helps and all of that, right? Let me actually toggle back. Now, I'll give you a simple example of a scenario where if an outage happens, those 4 pillars I told you about, where you're passive, reactive, proactive, and value led. I'll give you a simple example. Let's say you have an outage where one of your microservices went down. When I say microservices, it could be something that does your search operation, or it could be something that is responsible for pulling the inventory count before the product pages are displayed. Again, a bunch of reasons why something would go down. But for the sake of simplicity, let's say that there was a misconfiguration on one of your vendors, which resulted in your pages going down, right? What would that mean if I had those 4 pillars, right? Of passive monitoring, reactive monitoring, proactive, and value led. With passive monitoring, all I would know is that something went down because people started complaining on Twitter. I did not know this by myself. I had to rely on somebody else to tell me that, hey, your system has gone down. If it's a reactive approach, you would know that, yes, you would know. You would not rely on your clients or tweets or Twitter to give you or now known as X, to tell you that, hey, there is an outage. You would know when the outage happened between, let's say, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. It resulted in users being unable to check out because that page was down. That's it. That's all you would know. If you were using IPM, you would be proactive or you would have a value-led based monitoring. With a proactive approach, what you would know is that there was a CDN misconfiguration that resulted in the outage between 2:25 p.m. and 3:05 p.m. Exact times, not just a buffer of 1 hour or something. Wherein in that 25-minute window or 35-minute window, it happened because a CDN misconfiguration was pushed that resulted in the checkout page to be broken because one of the APIs was misconfigured. I pushed out the wrong version of the code online. So it was supposed to do some operation which it was not doing. That's what your proactive monitoring would say. Lastly, with value led, what you would see is that the outage lasted for about 25 minutes, but because it did, it resulted in a 12% reduction in my revenue for that 25-minute time frame. And I lost about 3 million clients who were trying to buy something, right? That's what each levels would mean. And yeah, again, like I said, performance and the fact that we have to keep ensuring our systems are reliable and available at all times, it never stops. We have to keep going and ensure that it's always up and running and performing optimally. Which brings us to the 6 steps to success. Now, sure, we've spoken about an example of what an IPM solution would do and why it's important. But we know all this. What do I do next? If you would like to understand your current monitoring ecosystem and see how we can improve upon it, the first thing is to identify the top 5 incidents that you've had in the last year. Now, these incidents could be because of an external factor, like the ones I gave examples for DNS or ISP outages or a third party outage, or it could be something internal, something that you have more control over. regardless of what it is, as long as they have had a significant impact on your infrastructure or on your customers, identify them, list them down. Once you know what those incidents were, evaluate the scope of the impact that they had on either your revenue, your customer dissatisfaction, or the reputation for your brand. Once we know the what and how of an incident, next let's understand how long it took to catch those issues, and second, resolve those issues. Sure, we would know a system is down, but that's not enough. We also need to, get all hands on deck and resolve that as well. So if it took you 10 hours to resolve, that is also not good. If it took you 15 hours to just catch it, that is also not good. So we need to understand the difference between identifying an issue and resolving an issue. Now, once that is done, once we have a ballpark estimate of the time taken, based on these incidents and the impact they've had, we need to build a plan to have a 360-degree monitoring ecosystem to facilitate a foolproof system. What does that mean? Now, in an event, an issue happens. The first thing we need to do is to have a foolproof solution that catches issues as quickly as possible and it goes to the right teams so that they can work to resolve the issue quickly. That's what it means by 360-degree monitoring. It's not just about catching them. It also means to point them to the right teams, have a process in place when an incident comes in, so folks can work with each other to improve or bring up the systems and then ensure it doesn't happen in the future. So those are the top four in terms of what you can, or rather, the first three would be relatively simple. Four, five, and six is where we can help you.
Yep, Akshita, that's great. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but the quicker they catch and identify an issue, the quicker it can be resolved, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's where we can help from an IPM standpoint, and how Catchpoint can help you. For joining us today. We'd love to help you build that IPM plan. Uh, we'd love to assist you on your journey to becoming more resilient, especially in this digital age that we're in today. I'm going to push a poll live. If you could please uh, click on the poll. Let us know if you'd like to learn more about Catchpoint and how we can help you from an internet performance monitoring standpoint. We'd love to do so. Uh, uh, we've got a couple of quick questions that came in. Akshita, one of the questions I think is for you. We only have about a minute or so left, but the question really is, um, where's the best place to start in the journey? Do I start looking at my website, my customer experience, my employee experience? Where do people start on the journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, one of the things that we were talking about as next steps to plan an internet or a resiliency plan is to understand where you've had the maximum outages, right? So, if your employees have been reporting the maximum outages, let's say in the last 7 days, let's start there. If it's the websites that have been slow and that's where you've seen issues that have been coming up, let's start there. Essentially, the first task that you have to do is to understand in a given time frame, whether it's external, your websites or applications being down, or whether it's your internal applications being down, let's just plan out and figure out which ones were the ones which were impacted the most. That's the best place to start.
All right.
Great question, though.
Awesome. Thanks, Akshita. Poll is now open. I actually clicked the right button, so you can definitely click and let us know how we can help. Feel free to check out our demos on catchpoint.com. We've got a great demo hub there with all sorts of demos walking through the complete solution. Uh, Again, I'd like to thank you all for your time today. and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.